Hi, Glenys.
Hey, Aaron. What do you want to talk about today?
How much I hate diets.
Yeah, diets suck.
So what do you do instead of a diet?
Intuitive eating. Health at every size.
So how many times have you had to explain intuitive eating and health at every size to someone?
Like 5,000 times. But that was just to my doctor.
Okay, so how many times have you explained it to someone and then they said, but diets are the only thing I know?
That's like every time. Can we pursue health without thinking about weight?
Yes, we can pursue health without thinking about weight.
That's pretty revolutionary, what you just said. But what if you just don't like yourself at the size that you're at?
I think we need to understand why, instead of just saying I need to change.
So, what's the deal with body positivity?
Oh man, that's a long answer. I'm Aaron Flores.
And I'm Glenys Oyston. And we are Dietitians Unplugged.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Dietitians Unplugged. How are you, Glenys?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like not I'm just gonna be honest, not buoyant right now, but like fine.
Yeah.
And how are you?
Yeah, I would say the same. Let's put it all in context. We're recording this on April 2nd of 2020. We are right in the middle. We're both in LA. So we're right in the middle of it's been about 2.5 weeks, or depending on around
it's
the
not,
time of
not
being,
2.5 years.
Not 2.5, it feels like it, but of being sheltered in place, and because of COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And so we're sort of right in the middle of it as we record this episode.
Right. And we just thought, we would talk about it and talk about the fears people are having and how it relates to the work we do, body image stuff, eating stuff, disordered eating disorders, all the stuff. Because it really is impacting that.
Absolutely. I think, listen, I'm not even going to go and talk about clients, right? I think personally, it's really fucking hard. I'm cursing a lot today. I went to the market for the first time during this, about 3 weeks ago now, right? And came home and totally cried and was just triggered beyond belief with seeing empty shelves all over the place.
Yeah.
And really having to scrounge for stuff. And for me, it just brought up the food scarcity piece of not having enough and feeling restricted and feeling I'm going to starve in my house. That's not true. It's not anywhere near how things are panning out at all, but it was incredibly scary.
Yeah. That first week, that we went to the grocery store, first of all, the lack of toilet paper. And I just want to know, what is everybody doing with all that toilet paper? Right? I haven't been able to buy it for weeks. Luckily, we just got enough a couple weeks ago. But then the food stuff, there was a lot less food on the shelves. And so talking to some of my clients, they're like, I haven't been able to get this ingredient or that ingredient, a main ingredient, and it's bringing up all sorts of food stuff for people. Yeah. And we've been okay. We've been able to get enough food. And I think the possibility is so much scarier than the reality, but
100%.
Our negativity bias is keeping us in, what if we run out of food?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I think about this is when I think about historical trauma, right? I mean, for, I've all of my family was here in the States by the time the World War II started. So they were not, they didn't flee the Holocaust, but they fled pogroms, earlier in the 1910s, right? In the early 1900s. So I don't know. I think about like how that affects us, right? And the historical trauma of that. And I think there's just like this really, if you've lived within diet culture. You've lived within this scarcity of food anyway. Right. And I think it just brings up a whole lot of fear in all of us.
Yes, exactly. And for some people, it's sort of like if they grew up with food scarcity, or they grew up in a family that just was kind of dysfunctional around food, which has been more the case in some of the people I've talked to, where it's like it's connecting those dots where they have resolved sort of that past history with their family, with being really good around food, like being really organized around food and being really just on top of getting themselves fed. And now all of a sudden there's this threat to it. And so a lot of stuff is coming up.
Yeah.
And so there's that piece of it where it's like, I can't just go and get the brand of macaroni and cheese that I like because it's gone. And so are all the other brands. There's that piece of it. And I'm going to say that most of us have never, even if somebody experienced food insecurity due to poverty, it's more like you didn't have the money, but the shelves were usually stocked.
Exactly.
So this is a very unusual situation for all of us in which, the shelves are not even being well stocked. And I actually think initially part of the problem was just there's plenty of food is what I'm understanding from the grocery stores, but they didn't have the personnel to restock. They're trying to resolve that now. Yeah. And we went and there were no eggs in the case. And we eat eggs pretty regularly at home. Yeah. And then we saw somebody, it was so weird. Like we saw somebody run by with eggs in the grocery store. And we're like, where did they get those?
Right.
And then somebody else said, you can ask for them. And we're like, oh my God, it never even occurred to us to ask for it. So we asked. And the person went back and got us some eggs. And it's like, oh, you just didn't have enough personnel to restock.
Exactly.
So if you don't see something, always make sure to ask. I did go into Target looking for toilet paper, and there's like the shelves were completely empty, and there were 3 employees standing there, and I was like, please, sir, can I have another roll of toilet paper? They were standing there and they're like, no, we're all out. And I said, well, I just wanted to make sure you weren't like the toilet paper guards and that, you could go to your secret place and get me some toilet paper. Mm-hmm. You can see I'm really fixated on the toilet paper thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of freaking me out a little bit. And no, we're out. That guy got the last. And I said, well, I'm going to follow him. And then I said, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But, sometimes you just have to have these humorous moments of like, okay, I'm going to get through it. But so this is unprecedented, right? Yeah,
no, seriously, like no one, like
in our lifetime. I should say unprecedented in our lifetime.
Exactly. But I'm saying like no one has a playbook for this. No one's like, oh, when I did this 15 years ago, this is what happened, right? This is sort of very unprecedented for almost everyone, right? I think there was a flu thing in the early 1900s, but most people are, not around who experienced that.
Right. And my grandparents who went through World War II, like when there were rations and that kind of thing, like they have passed, like,
right. Well, and also, but it wasn't like, so here's the interesting thing. I think you're absolutely right. There's this like perceived scarcity of food, but there is no, like the food supply is strong, right? No, we actually are not going to starve.
So far. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So far, where everything's, bountiful and we have plenty of food. And even like the last few times I've gone to the market, they are incredibly well stocked, and where it was like, there were no restrictions on really anything. The last time I went to Trader Joe's. And so that's very comforting for me. I think the interesting thing that comes up though, right, is just like, again, it's a natural thing. We get scared, so we want to like make sure we're going to have enough for ourselves, and that's where that hoarding mentality sort of comes in. Mm-hmm. But the ripple effects are that now toilet paper is sort of gone,
right?
Because people are hoarding it, and so I think this will resolve a little bit, and we'll be able to get a better supply, and people will at least that's how I sort of see it.
Yeah, I see the stores as being as surprised as everybody else and not ready for, there were runs on things 3 weeks ago before we even had the shelter in place order.
Oh, yeah.
Like I remember the Friday morning before it happened, and we were like, we've heard that there's been some toilet paper shortages. Again, that's the first thing that ran out. So we went to 2 Ralphs and it was like, yeah, they were already out. This was before the shelter in place order, which did sort of happen very soon after. But that really brought up some panic in me right then and there, where it was like, first of all, the grocery store, I'd never seen them so busy. Some had lineups. I know Costco's had lineups. And so I think it just took the stores by surprise. And so once maybe they rally and realize like we've got to get deliveries more often and, and hopefully production can continue of those needed products. I think that things will sort themselves out. I know our grocery store has been, they create a line outside. They only let so many people in at a time to make sure that there's enough people can keep enough distance. That's hard to do in a grocery store, but, people are doing their best. And I think they're also doing that lineup so that there's not a frenzy inside. I realized like that was probably more the reason for the lineup, which is, we don't want to have like a feeding frenzy going on in here, which instills more panic and then it just gets worse and worse. So, I think that it will get better as these stores adjust to a new reality.
Yeah. And also we are ordering in every now and then just to try and support local restaurants, right? So
we are too.
Every like once a week we try to order something in.
So I think in the first week, my partner and I were like single-handedly trying to keep the restaurant business afloat.
Yeah.
And we were totally. Like, let's order from this place and let's order from our favorite places. So we want them to be here when this is all over. And then we just realized, one, we weren't feeling so good because we were, restaurant food is richer than I would normally cook at home. So then we kind of slowed down to our normal pace, but still ordering, from our local places that we really like. And I mean, that's the other thing is like, I don't want to cook every night. That has not changed just because I'm at home.
No, same here. So that's an interesting thing. I have a bunch of clients who don't know how to cook or have a real aversion to cooking.
Yes.
And this has been like intense, like exposure work for them.
Yes.
For sure. And I think there's so many interesting resources that are popping up to folks about like creating like your home edition of Chopped. You have X, Y, and Z ingredients, and what can you make with that? And seeing some of the dishes that people are making is actually pretty cool. Like they're, because there are so many like little tiny just resources available that are showing people how to do some basic cooking. And again, it's hard, and it takes time, and it's all of the things, but like it's also like when you have so much time on your hand, it's like, oh well, maybe I'll just give myself a shot and try it.
Right. And this is where I say, like, this is where the flexibility comes in, where it's like, hey, you might not have the most perfectly balanced meal. And of course, we are never aiming for perfection, but you might not have the most balanced meal, and that's okay right now because we're making do.
So I think this is like, let's think about like, one of the themes that comes up a lot that I'm saying a lot is like, give yourself a lot of compassion right now, right? Nothing has to be perfect right now. We're living through something that none of us have been through, and we're in the middle of it. We don't know where the path is leading for a lot of us, right? And so for to just sort of honor that, hey, I might just have pasta tonight. Right. I might not have a protein with it, or I might not have a vegetable today, or I might, just want a salad. Right. Or I just, whatever it is these are, I think, to have a lot of compassion for ourselves.
Yeah. And flexibility is helpful where, as I said to one client, okay, worst case scenario for her was that they would run out of fresh produce in the store. I'm like, okay, let's run it through. Like, what happens? You don't have fresh produce for a few weeks. And she says, I don't feel very well. And I said, yeah, you probably won't feel that well because you like that kind of food. But do you die? No. probably not even from a few months of not having fresh produce. You don't die, right? Like, and then we can look at canned, or we can look at if there's frozen, or, and even if there isn't any of that, like the truth of the matter is we can sustain pretty unbalanced eating. We also know this because many of us have been through unbalanced eating through decades of dieting, right? Like vegetables. Did I eat that when I was dieting? No. I made it through years of that. Not recommending years, but I'm just saying, like, the worst case scenario, sorry, I don't want to say the worst case scenario, but like, yes, if you run out of these things, it will suck. But no, that won't be the end of your life. So that, but that makes me think of another thing. Cause I think there's also probably been, just from what I'm seeing in social media, there's been an uptick in body image, issues, negativity. And then of course there's just been a lot of fat phobic memes going around about how everybody's going to gain weight while they're at home, which is inexplicable to me. My life hasn't changed that much. I do try to go for walks, but like, honestly, if I didn't exercise, I don't think my weight would change at all. And I think that all of those worries that people are sort of, my clients are bringing it to me and saying like, hey, I've seen these memes that are like, oh, I'm so afraid of getting weight. And if they're in larger bodies, they're like, this is, totally insulting and triggering. And I'm trying to remember that in times of stress, I think we have this mechanism in place to go and worry about much smaller things.
Yeah.
To distract. And that I think that using the weight fears is like an unfortunate coping mechanism for people, where it's like, if I only have to worry about weight, I don't have to worry about dying.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Well, I also think I think there's this issue of like, in a time of chaos, what can we control?
Exactly.
And I think people feel like that's something that they can control.
Right.
I also think about how, like, it just shows how fucking horrible diet culture is. That when all of this is going on, right? It's like, oh yeah, and because you're fat, you're, blank, 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 right? All these memes, or like, even if you survive but you gain weight, it's like you've lost. It's like these fucking narratives that are so hurtful. It really bothers me. And here's the thing. I have not seen that many. And unfortunately, the ones I've seen were by other dietitians.
Interesting.
And it was like, oh, I literally almost threw my phone through, across the house when I saw it. Cause I follow a couple hashtags on Instagram, and one of them, and it showed up in this. I didn't know who the dietitian was. Thank God.
Well, I was going to say this was not a health at every size dietitian.
No. Okay. It was, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe you actually wrote this and put it on Instagram. It was just so hurtful, because this is one of the things that is coming up in almost all my sessions, is people like saying like, I'm really worried about, like people are posting so much negativity around weight gain right now that it's really upsetting. Yeah.
It's horrible.
And hurtful.
Yeah. Yeah. I, of course, advise less time on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always my advice, but especially now, because I've just seen a lot of stuff and also a lot of surprise information that you don't always want to hear or read.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to guard against that, because it just shows up and there it is. And you're like,
I will say there's, I guess maybe because I've cultivated a feed that's pretty congruent with what I believe in, seeing other folks online and doing some cool stuff has been awesome. I will give a plug for the folks on Instagram who started COVID-19 eating support, that follow that username. They're doing online meal support, like going live on Instagram every hour, almost around the clock.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that's been totally awesome. My slot is Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific, and did it last night and just had so much fun and felt really good about doing it. Like, just here's something I can do.
Yeah.
And it's a free service.
Yeah. And I want to say in regards to social media, it's like, it really depends on your personality and who you are.
Exactly.
Like if that's some place where you're getting a lot of solace and connection with people, then that is your thing and keep doing it.
Right.
And then if you're finding that you feel worse every time you're scrolling, then you might want to have like very pointed interactions. Like, if you want eating support, you can go to the COVID-19 eating support Instagram, which we'll link to in the show notes. Since we want to get this episode out pretty quickly. Yeah. So how do we protect ourselves during these times, or can we?
Yeah.
Can we?
I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think one is, listen, I'm gonna go from sort of general to specific. I know that we're in California. I'm very thankful that our governor and mayor of LA have done, to me, a very good job of implementing these things early. Some states are not. But I think we need to social distance. Like, I think you do need to stay home. I think you do need to really think about, when are you going out and is it necessary? 2 is wash your hands.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. And so those are the things that I'm doing on a food basis. Here are the things that I think I would want to say is, again, start with self-compassion. These are really hard times, and you might emotionally eat right now. Who isn't? You might emotionally not eat right now, right? Your anxiety might be really high where you're not eating as much. And sort of knowing yourself, right? Being is really important, and being connected to your body so that hey, when I feel this feeling, I know that this is anxiety, right? I know that this is like fear. So like you can say, this will pass. If I do something distracting, right, it'll pass. And maybe my hunger changes, or maybe the way I think about fullness right now changes. And so doing that. And then the other thing is reaching out for support. I mean, I think of, I realize I have a lot of privilege that I'm here in a house with my family. So there's people to talk to all the time. Some people are living alone, or with roommates that they don't talk to, or with parents that they don't talk to, or whatever. Is get connected with people, like have conversations with people, do some friendly meal support if that is helpful. I think going to the market we got to like restock food. You need food around.
Yeah.
And so I think just being really compassionate with ourselves and knowing that this is sort of basic needs right now. What do I need to do to take care of myself?
Yeah.
Is really important.
And I will say that while we're sheltering at home, and that the advice is to, stay at home, we can still go outside. So I think
exactly.
I obviously don't go to the busiest places if there are any busy places, but for the most part, we've been walking around our neighborhood, and people we pass on the sidewalk, one of us or the other kind of does the dance of like somebody goes onto the road. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you can still go outside. Yeah. If one feels safe to do that. It's like, I just feel like I have to.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And, I live in a pretty small apartment. Like, I don't have a lot of outdoor space here. So if I don't get out once a day, I start to go a bit crazy. And what you were saying about the anxiety and naming it, I really love that technique of name it to tame it. And I find, like, as a generally low-level anxious person, now high-level anxious person.
Fucking A.
Like, when I can identify, like, that tightness in my chest or the weird, the unpleasant butterflies in the stomach, it's like I find it really helpful to say, like you said, this is anxiety. Okay, I'm just going to name it. This is anxiety. This is fear. This is what I'm afraid of right now.
Right.
Do some deep breathing, and sometimes in trying to let it move through me, like, okay, what's it like just to let it move through me? Yeah. And actually, just through kind of a mild panic moment, that was really helpful. It didn't feel great to have it move through me, but then it went for a bit.
Yeah.
You know?
And so I think I love that you mentioned that, you know, it was like just, it's uncomfortable. It's really hard, but we can do it. And I think the other thing is that I love what you said is, you know, the secondary effects of noticing how anxiety makes us feel, right? So I do get short of breath, right? If I'm like really anxious.
So do I. Yeah.
It doesn't mean I have COVID now, right? And it just means that like this is part of the secondary reaction, and my mind goes there, right? It does. It's like, holy shit, you know, I'm scared. And then I also need to come back to like, okay, but there's no, like, this is part of your physical reaction to this, right? Like, I think these are things about being connected to our body, right? Is knowing how we experience things. And I'm really thankful that, you know, I was able to do some of that work before all this happened, or else I would feel much worse.
Right. My coping mechanism in the past when things went wrong was to really restrict. And I know that if I hadn't kind of done the work of giving all of that up, I would be panicking, and maybe it would be a welcome distraction for me. I don't know, but I think it would just be anxiety on top of anxiety, quite frankly. But I would try, you know, how little can I eat right now? And I don't want to do that. I want to just eat normal amounts of food because that makes me feel good. And that, you know, having some other coping mechanisms is good. And I think one interesting fallout, not for everybody, but for some people that I've talked to, and maybe for myself, is that because everything's slowed down considerably, there seems to be almost like a weird built-in mindfulness coming forth where it's like, well, I got less to do all day. So I'm trying to remember, like, okay, focus on today and here and now. Don't past dwell and don't future trip, because then that's anxiety on top of anxiety on top of anxiety. Like, I only need one anxiety at the moment. So I'm trying. It's not always easy because, of course, we're future thinkers, right? We're planners. But trying as much as possible not to write a scary story about the future. And I know that I saw someone say, and I think it was one of my Facebook friends quoting somebody else saying, if you're going to write yourself a story, make it a nice one. And so trying to do that a little bit, like, everything will be fine. This is very hard, but ultimately we'll make it through it, kind of thing. And, you know, all of that's hard. It's not going to make the problems go away. It's just, how do we live in the moment without freaking ourselves the hell out?
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And, you know, to me, the little bit of silver lining that has come from this is reaching out to people more often. You know, like I'm talking to people a little bit more often. I'm, you know, people that I haven't talked to in a little while, right? Just sort of reconnecting with them. You know, just knowing that there's a lot of like, I've been doing a lot of Zoom calls with just people where it's not work, right? It's just, we're just chatting, like, and that's sort of a nice side effect of this, is that I'm talking to people a little bit more.
Well, and the opposite effect for me has been that I'm actually I'm doing less connecting, which in some ways feels kind of nice. Like, if ever there was a question about whether I had an introvert nature or not, like, this has proven it to me that, like, the first week when all my engagements, like my outside of like even just personal, but also professional stuff, like just cancel the first week. And I went, oh, that feels really good. Like, I realized, like, I overschedule myself. And that's something that I maybe am just going to try and look at in the future of, like, maybe I don't need to schedule quite so much in 1 week. And it's okay to do a little bit less. You know, if you have a business, of course, there's a certain amount of networking and reaching out and all that you want to do. But so right now, it's just sort of like, you know, the first couple of weeks, I was like, oh, it's so really nice to have less to do. You know, financially, of course, then you worry a little bit, like, how long can that last? But but for me, it's just made me more mindful of like, hey, maybe I just don't need to overschedule myself quite so much.
Yeah. It's interesting because, being in a house of 4 people, because we all have different personalities, and my son is like, when school was finally canceled and he's doing online school and things at home, we're not going out as much at all. And he's sort of like, is it okay that I'm like secretly like really happy? Go, yeah, it's okay. He's sort of just like, he's loving this a little bit, because he can just hang out. And to be honest, like we're not the family that's gonna be like, okay, from 10 to 11, you need to do this. And from 11 to 12, you need to do this. Like
right.
he knows when he needs to get stuff done. He does it. We trust him. Same with our daughter, right? They just work differently, but like he's sort of enjoying the freedom.
Yeah, I think that is like, there are some people who are going to be enjoying this. And I know some people have said like, I almost feel a little bit guilty that I'm enjoying it to some degree. And I'm like, well, we're all different, right? And then there are going to be some people that are freaking out, and that's normal too. And that just, it's all personality dependent, and it's all your situation in life dependent. And, so I want to say that like everything is kind of normal. Like every reaction is normal. And overeating right now is normal, or not feeling like eating is normal. Of course, if you have an eating disorder, you want to make sure you're getting supported during this time. But yeah, things are going to be weird. Like,
and I think here's an interesting thing that I think about is the amount of people who may potentially develop eating disorders as a result of this trauma.
Yeah. Or old eating disorders resurfacing.
Or resurfacing, right? And so like, to me, I think what's really important to sort of say is like, this is a time that, and I know that financially things are hard for folks in many ways, is I think this is time to reach out to folks who treat eating disorders, for that support. I think it can be really challenging for a lot of people right now. Yeah. And, having a team to support you is really important. I mean, like, not to be like too blunt with it, but like, each of us like still have spaces in our practice. Like we are, this is a good time to start working with someone because it is helpful.
Right. Yeah. And I know finances can be a concern for a lot of people. But if they're not, but the other side of it is that people feel like, I can't work on things right now. And it's like, hey, we don't always have to have forward movement. Sometimes this work is just about us supporting you.
Right.
Helping you with the tools that are going to get you through day by day.
Yeah.
And reassuring you that disordered eating is kind of normal right now.
Yeah.
Or, and expected in a way. And so that the work isn't always like, you have to get things accomplished. And I do think that a lot of people come into my practice thinking like, we've just got to have forward movement and with every session. And that's just not how it works. Right. Like we're doing work of deep discovery of like people coming to what it is that they want in life and out of food and how they eat and how they live. And it just takes time and discussion. And it's not always going to be, here's your homework for the week. Kind of thing. And also like, I think there's a ton of free resources out there right now. Yes. So many like folks are offering like free support groups or just free stuff online. So, be sure and just check out all those because there are some really amazing people doing stuff that is accessible. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think maybe a place to go would be the Health at Every Size general group that's on Facebook. Mm-hmm. That probably there's going to be some information there. We can try and gather some data on what support groups are going on and put it in the show notes. Yeah. Yeah. And what do you say about like where people are finding an uptick in body dissatisfaction right now? Yeah. I think it's totally normal, right? I mean, like some people are, feeling guilty that they can't move their body the way they either enjoy to, right, or used to. And some people are, because of these sort of fat phobic memes that are out there are feeling even more shameful of their body. And I think, there's this other fear of like, is this a risk, right? And so far we haven't seen that, right? We haven't seen
the data on weight as a factor in these things. We haven't seen some of those that stuff. But I think it's really normal to feel this right now.
Yeah.
There's two sides to it, right? And I think like as we think about like, okay, I'm home more, right? And Glenys, you're absolutely right. Like we can go for walks, we can get outside. There are places that are doing like sort of online dance parties, right? Where you can do that, and different creative ways to move. The other thing it sort of popped into my head the other day is like being home more actually might be an interesting thing in allowing us to be more comfortable with our bodies, right? If we're going out every day, we might feel like we need to dress in a certain way or like whatever. And the other day I just thought about like, God, I'm home all the time. Like I could just, and I could just put on a shirt to go for work because it's, it's a 5 foot walk. Like,
be honest, you're not wearing pants right now, are you?
Barely, barely. But like, why can't when it starts getting a little bit warmer, like I'm just not wearing a shirt anymore. Like, like who? It's me in my house. Why do I have to like wear a shirt if it's hot? Right. It's like, to me, it's this interesting thing. Like, hey, we might be able to like walk around in something that we're actually more comfortable with, and it might help us feel more connected to our body.
Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe I think what you're saying is maybe this is a time where if we're not outside, now the eyes of society fall away a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so now maybe is the time to start figuring out what it feels like to be in your body versus seeing your body from the outside, especially with society's eyes, right?
Yeah.
So that self-objectification and just starting to become aware of like, and of course not everybody's body is going to feel good to be in because there's pain, right? But even acknowledging that, well, this is the reality of my body is maybe there's pain. But that doesn't make you a lesser person versus the self-objectification, which is the built-in sort of being a lesser person somehow. Like we're judging ourselves for this shape kind of thing. And it's just kind of fucked up, right?
Yes.
And versus, well, here's the reality of my body. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not so good, but this is the reality. And none of that makes me a lesser person. So just getting used to being in your body and feeling what it's like to be inside your body. And that can be really confusing because so many of us have spent so much time only experiencing our bodies from how they look from the outside. And that's how we lose connection, right? Like some people say, I only feel my body from the neck up kind of thing. And it's because we're so busy ignoring the needs of our body. And then seeing it from how other people see it, or how we perceive other people to see it, or society to see it. So now if you're at home, maybe now is the time, like, how do we bring kindness in to our body? How do we treat our body kindly?
Yeah. I thought of one just resource, and this is only for providers, but Headspace is free if you have an MPI number, National Provider something number. And if you enter that number, you will get Headspace for free. Their subscription service.
Wait, what's
which is an app.
What's Headspace?
Headspace is an app, like a mindfulness app.
Oh, okay.
So, but like they have a lot of like body scan stuff, like where we could like, it's tools to help do that, right? Help feel more connected. But there are a lot of free like body scans. Like, so if you just like were to Google that, you can find some on iTunes or Spotify or all over, and just listen to those, and maybe those help. A good thing to help you feel connected.
Yeah, and you might be able to find those on the meditation apps like Insight Timer and Calm.
Right.
I think they have like, I'm always impressed with Insight Timer. They've got kind of like a category for everything, it seems like. So, yeah. And so that is one way to start getting connected with inside of your body. And that's when you start to increase that connection, that's when you can identify those feelings of anxiety.
Right.
And name it and give it, like, describe it. What does it feel like in your body? And can we let it move through, or just can we let it sit? But being just, I think, more connected that way is well, I may be biased, but I do think it's generally better. So
yeah.
And because our body can talk to us and tell us what it needs. And in the first week of this, it seemed like my body needed a lot of chocolate chip cookies.
Listen,
my partner baked some, and I was like, every time I eat one of these, I'm saving the world, obviously. So
yeah, no, I was opposite. I was like, it was really, I had to like really think about relaxing to eat. Because if not, I was just not hungry. I was like, I'm too anxious. Like this is, so.
Yeah. So the first week I wasn't anxious really at all because I am great in an emergency. It's the long-term unresolved anxiety that mounts and mounts. So like if there's an emergency, you want me around because I can hold my shit together really for a very short period of time. And so I was really hungry that week. And actually I felt like I was overeating quite a bit. And I was fine with it because it's like, this is just, I get that I'm not completely connected with my body right now. I am, but it's just like, everything's off. I can't really concentrate. I can't really. So a lot, like you said, compassion, right? Like, hey, I get that this week is not normal. And I'm experiencing this sort of mental shift as, okay, this is only week 3, right?
Yeah.
Even though it feels like month 3, it takes time to have that mental shift of this is the new normal and how do we live now? And so, I had no problem eating those cookies. And in fact, more are coming soon. My partner's making them and I'm like, get on it. We need those cookies.
Yeah.
Those life-saving cookies. And why not eat enjoyable food? This is the other thing that has been coming up with clients saying, am I allowed to have comfort food? I'm like, yes. First of all, even when there's no crisis, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Why shouldn't food be wonderful and comforting?
My father's texting me pictures of like zucchini bread, banana bread, and carrot cake. I mean, like he's making all the breads.
Yeah.
And like, this little like lovely grin he has, like with the proud loaf that he just made. I just want to say proud loaf.
Proud loaf. I made some proud loaves this week. Banana bread. That wasn't a weird scatological joke or anything. Like like banana bread. Sorry.
So yeah, I mean, I think that, it's, we absolutely need that comfort food. Like we made cupcakes the first week and, my daughter's baking up a storm all the time.
Well, there's something really wonderful and comforting about baking too. Like I can provide for myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
I can take raw ingredients or like a box mix from Betty Crocker or Duncan Hines, whatever you prefer. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not making this from scratch, but I can put a few ingredients together and make some sustaining food. So I love baking at times like this. So
absolutely.
Yeah. There will be a cake forthcoming. We got a box mix up in the cupboard.
Yeah. Well, I think it's nice to talk to you, Glenys. I think,
I feel better.
But like, I think this is really, telling, is it like when you do connect with people and you sort of talk it out and you share that common, like, hey, I'm feeling this too, or this is how I'm dealing with it without someone saying, well, have you thought of, is really nice. And so, we want to provide that for our listeners, like we're here for you. We're in this with you. And we're equally scared and anxious and worried and at the same time, like hopeful that we can get through it. Right. And so we know what you're all going through, and it's nice to connect with you and to be able to do that, to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just know we are all here for you. You can reach out through our Facebook page and just say hello and ask us questions, and maybe we'll get a chance to answer them in another episode. And just keep the connection going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, well, everyone be safe, stay at home, wash your hands, keep washing your hands, and then wash your hands again.
Then take a walk. Then wash your hands again.
And take a walk when you can. Yeah, absolutely. And we look forward to another episode coming soon. Thanks, everyone.